Parents, when your kid is sick, it is just the worst. Not only does it break your heart if they are congested, having a fever, they're coughing, they're stuffy, they're dealing with all of that, it really disrupts your life in a major way, right? Maybe they're staying home from school, now you have to change your work schedule, or it's harder to keep up with just the everyday tasks. There's this huge downstream effect. And this is even more concerning if instead of a here and there illness that lasts a couple days, if these are illnesses that are lasting days to weeks and they're happening more and more frequently, this is something that we need to figure out why it's taking place and have a different path to health. I know there's so many parents who are looking for natural, drug-free, medication-free alternatives to health, and that is exactly what this video is for. I want to help you look at health differently. I want to help you think about sicknesses in a completely different paradigm. I want to explain what it has to do with this, right? What is rats and garbage and like what the heck is that all about? We'll talk through it, and then I want to give you the 3 R's of how you can recover faster, how you can get your kid healing and adapting even better. The third one is probably going to be a new one. I doubt you've been thinking about that or taking action on it as much as you should. But let's start by just understanding sickness, understanding what is going on with our immune system and why do we need to think about that differently. The prevailing theory for years and decades and centuries now has been the germ theory, right? As soon as we discovered these little microbes, the thought has been the germ causes disease. The germ is what causes sickness. What I want to propose is that germs cause disease in the same way that rats cause garbage. And hopefully you hear that and you think, well, rats don't cause garbage. Yes, exactly right. That's the point. But what you'll see is that if you've got a garbage dump, say you picture a dirty back alley garbage dump full of trash, it's not in the dumpster, that scenario is gonna attract gross stuff, right? There's gonna be cockroaches, there's gonna be rats, there's gonna be a bunch of stuff there. You could put out rat poison, you could put out traps, you can maybe build a fence around it to keep out the rats and the bad guys, but as long as the dump stays there, they're going to be attracted to it. But you would never look at that situation and be like, oh, all this trash is here because there's all these rats that caused it, right? It's the other way around. That is how the immune system works. Just like if you wanted to get rid of the rats, you get rid of the dump, you get rid of the trash. Germs are showing up when the disease state, when the susceptibility is present. They're not necessarily the ones causing it. And yes, of course, if you're sick, you can culture your throat, you can analyze the bacteria, and there is a bacteria. If there is a virus, there's something that is triggering that. But the bigger factor is not just what you're exposed to. It is how your immune system is able to fight it off, right? The susceptibility that you have or you don't have is the biggest indicator in whether or not you're going to be feeling sick, not just what you're coming across. And the reality is we're all exposed to a whole bunch of stuff all the time, right? The biggest indicator of whether or not you're going to be struggling and down and out with a sickness, or even the severity of how much it's going to affect you, isn't whether or not you come across the germ, it's how prepared your body is to defend it. So that's really where our focal point lies, is how can we build up defenses? And then say you do have the illness and have the sickness strike, what do we do to get through it faster? Because at that point, you're definitely not hiding from the germs. You can't kill the bad guys. You've got to build up your internal defenses to be able to fight it off. So instead of that germ disease, you might have heard, or the germ theory, you might have heard of something called the hygiene hypothesis, right? That is explaining the fact that when kids are exposed to germs early on in life, they have a way stronger lifelong immunity. Their immune system, through neurology, through the nervous system, is able to fight stuff off better. And I even think of my own life and my own experience here at Thrive as a pediatric chiropractor. We tell parents to bring their kids in more if they are struggling. We are intentionally putting ourselves in an environment when there is more germs and more exposure. And there has been one time over the last, 7-8 years, however long I've been in practice now, that we've had to change our adjusting schedule because of an illness, right? If that were the case, if germ theory was true, be more sick than anybody else. But there's more to the story. There's how you can build up your defenses. So the missing piece of that, before we get into the 3 R's, is neurology, right? The one that is not talked about enough isn't just the immune control, it's that your nervous system regulates that. You've probably heard the fact that 70-80% of your immune system resides in your gut, and your nutrition and your gut health matters so much, and that is 100% true. But what you might not realize is that your gut health is mediated through neurology. Your vagus nerve is the one that's controlling digestion, it's controlling your microbiome. So even if you're taking all these expensive supplements and putting the perfect food into your body, if you don't have it absorbed properly, if you don't have it fully broken down and taken in, you're never really getting the impact that you should out of it. So it's not just about the nutrition piece of it, it's about processing and nutrition. So let's talk about it. What are these 3 R's? Rest, replenish, and recharge. The first 2, like I said, I'm guessing you're a little bit more familiar with. It's that third one that we got to dig into a bit. That's so frequently the missing piece for families. So what's rest? Rest seems self-explanatory, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But what I do want to point out is that true rest means you're not watching shows. It means you're not scrolling your phone and getting stressed out about other stuff. It's physical and neuro rest, right? It's neurological rest and recovery as well. Yeah, maybe you need to read a book to pass the time and keep yourself from going crazy, but let your brain slow down. Let your body put energy and resources towards fighting something off, because when you are struggling, if you need to recover, that is a huge piece of it, right? It's my least favorite part of healing, right? We have a sign right over where I'm looking here at the office. It says healing takes time. I hate it. I hate having to reference to it when we're having conversations with families, but it's true, right? Your body needs time to heal. We're amazingly designed to be able to heal and be well, but it takes time. So give your body the rest that it needs. But let's not just passively rest, right? I doubt you just want to twiddle your thumbs and hope that your healing eventually happens. You want to have action steps that you can take to expedite that. So what does that look like? Second R is replenishment. And that's the part that a lot of times people are a little bit more aware of, especially in the world of Dr. Google and ChatGPT now, right? You can quickly find great information on what does that look like. So stuff like clean water, right? Hydration is so simple, but so important. Making sure that you're drinking, making sure that you're getting the electrolyte balance you need too, right? Salts, calcium, potassium, magnesium, all of those things are a huge part of making sure that we're hydrated well, especially when you're not drinking, natural spring water, you got tap water that's been already processed and filtered in other ways. You got to fill in the gaps and add those things back in. So clean water, electrolytes, hydration is the foundation. Honestly, it doesn't bother me if kids are feeling sick for a couple of days and they're not really eating a whole lot. As long as they're staying hydrated, I promise they'll catch up. You get through the illness, you get a couple of days back to them feeling normal, and they have like these refeed days where you're like, oh my gosh, I just fed you. How are you eating again? It happens. They'll catch up on the food. We got to stay hydrated though. That's what's going to take the illness that is totally fine and escalate it to the next level. So we got to have clean water. Add in the superfoods, right? And that means a lot of different things, but put those in your smoothies. Add as much fresh fruits and vegetables as possible, because there's way more that is packed inside that just, we'll call it in nature's in nutrition, than we've come up with since then, right? There's way more intelligence packed into those micronutrients and how they interact with each other than any of the one-off supplements. Absolutely, we're gonna talk about that and we're gonna add those in too. But the more you can just eat the fresh berries, the more you can eat real food and real nutrition, that is the most powerful way for you to give your body the nutrients that it needs and that it will help kick the sick faster. So start with that, but then yes, there is extra supplements too. For us, that looks like vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, bone broth. Extra supports might be elderberry syrup. That's one that our kids definitely reach for, especially if there's respiratory things, sore throat. It's kind of tasty too, right? The kids love for it. They fight over who gets to get it first. And essential oils, right? That's another one that we don't talk a whole lot about personally, but there's a lot of great information. You probably have a mom friend who uses those a lot more than you, and maybe you can ask them for guidance and help. But what we're looking at is what we would call nature's medicine cabinet, right? And let me differentiate a little bit between a pharmaceutical approach and a supplements approach, because you might look at those and be like, hey, I could take this as a cough suppressant or this pharmaceutical medication as one. But there's a distinction there that's important. One is going to be something that supports your body's own natural healing processes. It's coming alongside and just giving you the nutrients you need to do what your body's designed to do. Versus the other approach, a more medication pharmaceutical one, that is coming in and overriding your body's own process, right? It's taking action and forcing some function, not supporting your body's own wisdom. So that's an important distinction. And as much as possible, we want to lean in the direction of supporting healing and not overriding your body's own cues and your body's own wisdom that it's got, because that is our best way to heal, right? And that's the underlying principle of everything we do at Thrive. It's the above, down, inside out, the audio principle we've talked about before. It's healing comes from the inside out, not the outside in. So support healing, replenish those nutrients with the supplements. But number 3, recharge. That is the missing piece. We got to recharge your nervous system when you are so depleted. And that is where neurologically focused chiropractic care really can be life-changing. So many families, and maybe this describes you, you're doing all those things, right? You are letting your body rest. You're letting your kids take it easy. You're holding them back from school when they need it. You're replenishing the nutrients by making sure they're not eating garbage. They're not having a bunch of extra sugar in general, but especially not if we're sick and struggling. And you're giving them the supportive supplements to help fill in the gaps, but you're still struggling. You're still in a rut. That's where we've got to lean on the nervous system. Your nervous system is what regulates your immune system in every single way. So if that part is stuck still, you're gonna leave so much potential healing on the table, right? The way I talk about it and explain it is the ROI, the return on investment of all the other stuff you're doing in life, isn't going to be as impactful. So what are some ways, I listed out a few here that I want to walk you through, how the nervous system regulates the immune system. The first one I would just call plumbing. Think of lymphatic drainage and circulation. When we have physical misalignment and tension in our nervous system, specifically if we're talking about sinuses, congestion, ENT system, ear infections, that upper neck brainstem region, that gets jammed up and nothing is moving, nothing is flowing. When fluid sits in the body, it is breeding grounds for infection. So of course, the ear infections and the sinus infections are going to be all too common. So that's a huge, huge benefit. We see kids do amazingly well with congestion issues, with ear infections, because we typically find that there's that upper neck stress. When we resolve that, everything can drain and function as it's supposed to. So lymphatic drainage is a huge part of it. We get rid of those waste products. Next one, it's gonna get a little sciencey here, so stay with me, but you don't have to memorize these big words, but cytokine production is the next one. There's different cytokines, which think of those as just immune system communicators, right? There's regulation proteins, and they're gonna tell your immune system either increase inflammation or decrease it. The adjustment through modulating neurology, through calming that fight or flight response, is able to increase the anti-inflammatory cytokines and decrease those pro-inflammatory ones. So it's able to calm that broad systemic wide inflammation and then allow your body to heal faster and more quickly. Next one, another big word, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. You'll probably hear that referred to as the HPA axis. That is your stress response, right? The adrenals are maybe the one that you're most familiar with that if you don't have a healthcare background. The adrenals are what pumps out adrenaline and cortisol and all those fight or flight hormones. When you have a stress response, it creates all sorts of a hormonal cascade that downregulates your immune system. And that's smart in a way, right? If your body is in a survival situation, you're running from a bear in the woods, it doesn't really matter if you get sick next week. It doesn't really matter if you can kick this, the cold that's coming around the corner. You've just got to make it through the minute. And so I understand why that would be the amazing design that we have, but that's not what we want when we are not running from a bear, right? When those stressors are just the things that have put us into fight or flight, but you're stuck in that mode, you're gonna have this cascade of too much cortisol, too many other fight or flight producing hormones, which then gets your body out of that rest, digest, wellness state. If your body's in survival mode, it doesn't care about fighting off those bugs and those germs, and they're more easily able to set up shop, right? The disease state exists, so now the germs are way more proactive and way more able to take root than they would be otherwise. So we've got lymphatic drainage, we've got that HPA axis, we've got cytokine production. A couple of the last ones here are just more neuromodulation. The vagus nerve is a huge piece of that. The vagus nerve is that nerve that comes out of the base of your skull and runs by the first couple cervical vertebrae. When you have that HPA axis that is stuck in survival mode, it usually goes hand in hand with the vagus nerve, which is the brake pedal, the calming side of your nervous system. That's dysregulated as well. That's also where the gut piece of it comes in. The vagal nerve, the vagus tone, is what controls our gut health. And even if you're putting all of the great food in, if you're not processing it properly, it's probably because your HRV, your vagal tone, isn't good. It's one of the scans that we do at Thrive, is measuring the vagus nerve and seeing if there is that dysautonomia stress, and your digestion is going to be impacted as well. Last one, you might have heard of natural killer cells or T cells. They're just more different types of the cells that are actually fighting the bad guys. I think of these simple analogies because my kids, I have 3 boys and a baby girl, they're always fighting bad guys, whether it's real life, the bad guy is the brother, or it's the imaginary bad guy that they've created in their little world. But those are the ones that are fighting the bad guys in your body, right? The T cells, the natural killer cells, you want those upregulated when you have the invaders. because that's what actually gets the job done. That is what constantly is fighting off the bacteria and the virus that you come across, and that is what is enhanced through adjustments. So what I want you guys to think about, kind of wrapping up here, is where are you missing those 3 R's? Are you not giving your body the time to rest like it actually needs? Are you not replenishing as well as you should? Or are you missing that neurological recharge? Getting sick is a normal part of life, right? Don't get me wrong, a healthy, thriving immune system isn't one that never has symptoms. It's just one that maybe once or twice a year for a couple days deals with something, not once or twice a month for a couple weeks, okay? That's the difference here. We want to work towards being able to deal with things less frequently and then kick them off faster when you do. So if that's you, if you're stuck with that third one, if you're not checking the box on neurology yet, let us help. That is the entire reason Thrive exists, to allow that optimal nervous system function for full families, whether that's your kids or you, mom and dad, so that their whole rest of their nervous system can control the immune system, the digestion, the stress response, and everything else that follows suit. So let us help. That is what scans are for. They let us measure that stress. They let us answer the question of, is that what's going on? Are you missing the recharge step? And what can we do to put together a game plan to help you out? We're here for you. Cannot wait to meet you soon and help your family build a strong, resilient, amazingly thriving immune system.